On June 28th, Washington Post published an article on their site titled "Hillary Clinton's Email Story Continues to Get Harder and Harder to Believe." Now, this article is about the AP, the Associated Press, releasing 165 pages of emails that Hillary sent from her private server. Now, in the AP's article, they stated, the emails were not among the 55,000 pages of work-related messages that Clinton turned over to the agency in response to public record lawsuits seeking copies of her official correspondence. In a March 2009 email between Clinton and Abedin, who is one of her confidants, one of her aides, there's a quote that reads, "I have just realized I have no idea how my papers are treated at State," which means State Department, "who manages both my personal and official files. I think we need to get on this ASAP to be sure we know and design the system we want." This story, as we go on and as we get further into the investigation, and as it possibly might be drawing to a close, it gets not only harder and harder to believe her story, but it gets harder and harder to believe that an indictment is not possible. With every new bit of information, we find out that she didn't want the personal to be accessible, which means the quote-unquote personal emails that her and her team decided were personal emails, such as these emails that talk about the setting up of the private server and what she needed to know before setting up the private server. These were all considered personal emails and were deleted and not given to the State Department, which shows, in my eyes, that there was an intent to subvert, to hide, and to keep these documents, these emails, away from the people, the public, the State Department. And that, to me, is enough information to say that an indictment is, at least on my end, 60% likely. You cannot sit up and say that you don't want the personal emails to not be accessible by the State Department or by the public if you're not trying to hide anything. I mean, you can say it, but it makes you look like you are willfully and knowingly trying to hide something. And as more of these emails come out, we see in the emails that she did not give over, she is trying to hide something. Her and her team actively were trying to hide it when they filtered their emails and decided which ones to give to the State Department and which ones not to give to the State Department. And in this article from the Washington Post, there is this graphic, very simplistic graphic. It's a pie chart, and you're seeing it on the screen now. You see that 50% of her emails were withheld as personal and private. 44% were released to the State Department, and 5% were released to the State Department from other addresses that were from other addresses, and the 44 was including state.gov addresses. And ultimately, we Democrats really need to sit down and think about this. You're sending someone into the general election who is highly flawed. This story alone has the ability to destroy your nominee's entire campaign. And is it really worth it to risk it? We're going to get into some of the other things that have come out that have happened lately that deal with this thing. But in a few weeks here, Democrats will be nominating Hillary Clinton as their nominee for president. And at the same time, you've got the FBI interviewing her. You've got the FBI looking into her to determine if she should be indicted for what she did in the State Department. And then you find out these stories about her willfully and knowingly tried to hide from the public. It doesn't look good. It looks bad. And again, on my end, I think 60% chance that there's an indictment. Now, I'll be glad to know that I'm wrong. In a lot of ways, Hillary is better than Donald Trump in all those ways, or when it comes to social issues, some social issues. But it's not worth it if we're going to have a president who is not going to be, even remotely transparent with us. And I mean, that's what we have to look at. This person knowingly hid information from the American public. It doesn't get any more less concerned about the people than that. She said one thing in public, and then in these emails said something totally different.